Hello everyone, welcome to this live session on data analysis with Excel by Simplilearn. In today's session, we will learn about Microsoft Excel and how it can be used to perform data analysis. Our instructors with good industry experience will help you learn everything from scratch. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss an update. So we will start by understanding the basics of Microsoft Excel, followed by learning the top Excel functions and formulas. We will then see how to validate and format data in Excel. Moving further, we will learn two important features of Excel that help in analysis of data. So we'll look at pivot tables and Power Query. We'll get an idea about using the data analysis tool pack for performing statistical analysis such as descriptive statistics, regression analysis, and sampling. Finally, we'll focus on automating tasks in Excel using macros and VBA. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, let's continue learning Excel. So we will learn about functions and formulas, we will learn about conditional formatting, data validation, pivot chart and pivot table. Now let's look at a scenario here. So one day in a startup, one professional speaks that their business is growing and they would need an efficient way to work with the data. They would have to find a way to work faster with storing and analyzing data. Now, to that, another colleague responds, well, we can make use of Microsoft Excel to do this job. The question is, will Excel be able to cater to their business needs? Now, the colleague responds, well, we can make use of Excel in several ways, and it also is a cost-efficient option. Now, in that case, the colleague who posed the question says, let's go ahead with Excel and let's train our employees in Excel. And the suggestion is welcomed, which would make the job easier for them, and they would basically decide on using Excel, so they decide on taking a training right away and basically starting to learn Excel. Now, before we move to Excel, one of the questions is, why should we use Excel? So let's look at some of the points here. So Excel proves to be a great platform to perform various mathematical calculations on large data sets, which is one of the biggest requirements of various organizations these days. Various features in Excel like searching, sorting, filtering makes it easier for you to play with the data. And Excel also allows you to beautify your data and present it in the form of charts, tables, and data bars. Now, when it comes to reporting, accounting, and analysis can be performed with the help of Excel. It can help you with your task lists, your calendars, and goal planning worksheets. Excel also provides good security for your data. Excel files have the feature of password protection. This way, your information can be safe. Now, when we talk about what is Excel and how it can be used, so Excel, or you might have heard as spreadsheet, can be basically used for a lot of different tasks than just storing the information in so-called tabular format. Now, Microsoft Excel is an application that is used for recording, analyzing, and visualizing data. It is in the form of a spreadsheet. Let's have a look at few of the functions and formulas used in Excel. And before we do that, we can also quickly take a small tour to understand how to work with Excel. Now, to do that, what we can do is we can type in our search, say for example Excel, and just select your Excel app which is installed. And here you see you have a lot of options which says take a tour, drop down list, get started with formulas, make your pivot table, going forward with pie charts, and much more. So we can click on this one which says take a tour. And that basically pops up a window which says welcome to Excel. And if you have always wanted to be better at Excel, you have this which can help you. So let's click on create, and that takes us to the store window. Now that says instructions for screen readers. which basically talks about 10 different steps in which we can learn Excel and using the spreadsheet app. So there are more than 11 sheets which we see here at the bottom end, and each one gives us a simple example which we can work on. So for example, if I click on add, now that takes me to this page which says, how do we add numbers? Now, you might be provided data which we can upload by loading a file from our machine or getting data from a web source or even connecting to a database. So there are various options which we will see in some time. So here we have an option which is called data. You can click on this one, and this basically has options where you can use existing connections. If you have created some, you can always click on from other sources, and you can get your data from SQL Server, from analysis services, from OData data feed. You can get in from XML, from Data Connection Wizard, or also from Microsoft Query. You can be running in different queries here, which shows up in the option which says New Query. There are connections which you can use, and that basically will display all the connections for this particular workbook, which we do not have as of now, but we can create them. But let's look at simple examples. Now you can follow these instructions here, which says basically adding up the numbers, and that could be easily done by just placing your cursor here. And what you could do is either you can type in the formula, that is from which row to which row you would want to add the data. So for example, I could just do a sum here, and that shows up all the different functions which are available. Then we can open up a parenthesis, and we can say I would be interested in totaling the amount from column D, and I would select, for example, D4. So I could be doing this, and then I could say D4 onwards till D7. So that's the data which I'm interested in. You can close your parenthesis and hit enter, and that gives you the total. There is also a shortcut for this, which you can always do, is we can first delete this, and you can just place your cursor here and just use your Alt and equals. That automatically selects the numericals, which we can anytime expand or basically collapse. So I will basically select this, which says this function needs two numbers, which is number 1 and number 2, and then you can hit on enter, and that gives you the total. So similarly, we can be getting in the data here by selecting all the fields. So here it also says that you can use a shortcut. Now what we can also do is we can add numbers over 50 by selecting the yellow cell here and then giving a condition such as, so I can basically use something like sum if, and then open a parenthesis. I can select, I would be interested in this row, and then I can even drag and drop till here. So that tells me D11 to D15. You can then put in a comma here, and you can give your condition. Say, for example, we would say, I would be interested in numbers only above 50. And we can select this, close your quotes, and then just close your parenthesis, and that's your formula. So you can do this, and that basically gives me the total is 100. Now similarly, we could do that for the amount here. I could select this. Now there is also an option, I can click on home, and I can go for something like auto sum. So that's one more way of doing it, which anyways says sum is alt plus equals. So it automatically adds up your values, and I can try doing a auto sum that automatically selects my rows, and then I can get my total. Now, as per this activity here, it says try adding another sum if formula here, but add amounts that are less than 100, and the result should be 160. So what we can do is we can basically select all the numbers which are lesser than 100. So the way we did earlier here, there can be always a shortcut. So you can always, for example, if you would want to avoid typing in the formula, you can always copy it from here and then just hit on enter. So you are back into this cell, and then I can basically go here and paste the number, and then as per the requirement, we are required to select anything which is lesser than 100. So what I could do is I could select here, I could say, let's say G, and then I can change this value to G15, and that's one more way. Now we see our selected rows have been changed. So I can hit on enter and I can check what is the result. So we would be interested in looking for numbers which are lesser than 100. So I will have to also change this one to a lesser sign, and that basically gives me the total, which is 160. So that's how you can simply add numbers. You can use auto sum, you can type in the formula, you can select the fields, or you can just place your cursor where you would be looking for a sum, and then you can just do a alt equals, and that basically populates the sum. Now let's look at some easy options of filling your cells or automatically populating the values in your cells within your Excel sheet. Now here we have an option which says 100. Now we can click on this, and that basically says it is making a sum of column C4 to D4. So if I click on this one, I can check that this is row number 4, which shows up here. And I also know this is column C. I also have D, so this equals is basically giving me a sum of C4 to D4. Now what we can do is we can always place our cursor here at the right corner, and then we can just drag and drop, and this basically gives me a total of all the numbers for all different rows. So this is one shortcut which we can do to get the total. Excel will automatically give the totals, which we call as filling down. Now what we can do is, in the same way, if we would want to get the totals here, we can first check what is this 200, and this tells me it is C11 to C14 total. So it is totaling the rows from C11, so column C and 11th row, till 14th row, and that's the sum. Now what I can also do is I can similarly, like above, we can do a filling right, which basically means bringing your cursor here and then just dragging and dropping it all the way where you would need the totals, and this basically gives me the total. There is one more quick way to check if this is right. So the easiest option would be to select this cell. Now what I can also do is I can just select all of these fields by just highlighting and selecting all the fields. Once it is selected, press on Ctrl R, and that gives you the total. Now if we would be doing this top down, then I could select all these rows for this particular column, and then I could do a Ctrl D. So that's your filling down, and this one was filling right. So this is an easier option of doing a fill when you would want to have the formula applied to every row as it occurs in the first row or the last row. We could test this by, for example, selecting these fields. I could delete them, and I have here which says 130. I could just place my cursor here and I could drag it all the way up, and that should also do the same magic which we were seeing from top down. So this is a simple way wherein you can fill up your cells, and you can also automatically propagate or move your computation to all the cells. Let's look at the split option, which basically helps us in splitting the data when we have some kind of pattern or when we have some kind of delimiters in our data in, say, one particular column, and we would want to derive the values out of it. So we can always use the splitting option. Now the easiest option would be, so for example, we have our email column which has the email IDs, and which we can clearly see has a first name dot last name. Now I see that there is a last name Smith filled up here, first name is empty. So what I can also do is I can just type in, say, Nancy here. Now that's the first name. I can again start typing the second name, and as soon as you do that, you would see a faded list of numbers, and that's your clue to hit enter. And once you do that, you would see all the first names have been filled in here. If you would want to maintain the case sensitiveness, you can just go ahead and delete these. And let's type in as it occurs. So let's say Nancy as the first name. Go down to the next cell and just type in Andy, and there is your grade list. So just hit on enter, and that basically fills up your first name. What we can also do is we can just select this particular field, and either we can type in Control E, which basically fills up all the options. Now I can just do a undo by typing in or clicking Control Z, and that's basically gone. What I can also do is I can select a particular field, and then I can go into Home option, and under Home you have an option here which says Fill. So you can select this, and then you can do a flash fill, which is what we are doing here. So click on flash fill, and that automatically fills up the values. So in this way you can work within your spreadsheet, and you can be filling up the values where a delimiter by default is understood, and we can split the data. Now however, sometimes you might have some data which has a different kind of delimiter, and there is again a smarter way of splitting your data. So you can always scroll down here, and that says splitting a column based on delimiters. So we have some values in the data column, and these values in each row are separated by comma. So select this. Your data is already selected. Text to columns, delimited, comma is selected, and now click on next. So it basically says what is the destination. Let's select this one. And I can choose what would you want to have. So that shows me this would be my data preview. Now I can basically select this one. I can say finish and say OK. And now if you see, our data has been placed in the columns appropriately. So this is how you can split your data based on a delimiter and then organize your data in a better way. Now there are some advanced options which we can learn later, but this basically tells about using a formula. So this is something if we have some name in one cell, and if you would want to split it into first name, your helper column, your middle name, last name, so that can also be done using formulas. And this basically tells how would you extract characters from your left cell and how would you place them in your right cell. So you can try this activity, which is a little more of advanced option. The benefit is that you can always use this, wherein if you do some kind of transformation using your formulas, if your original data gets updated, then the split data will also get updated. And that's the benefit of using formulas, where you can place values from one cell into multiple cells based on execution of your details in the formulas. How about using the transpose option? Now, you might have heard of situations where you would want to switch or turn your rows into columns and your columns into rows, and that's where transposing comes into picture. It might be useful when you have your data in your X and Y axis, or as I would say in rows and columns, and you would want to switch your rows to become the columns and columns to become your rows. So what we can do is, the simplest way is you can select all your values. So here we basically have 6 columns and I would say 2 rows. Now I can select all of these, and then I can select an empty field. For example, the one which is highlighted here. Well, you can always do a Control-Alt-V. That's a shortcut. What you can also do is, once you have selected all your fields, you can just copy them. So just do a Control-C and then click on an empty cell. And then what you can do is you can do a special paste or paste special. So under your home, you have the paste option, and here you can go for paste special. And once you do that, you need to select the transpose option over here and click on OK. And now you will see that the columns and the rows have been transposed. So your row name was item, and that has become the column heading. You had row name as amount, and that has become the column heading. And all your values have been transposed in this particular format. Now there is another way of doing that, and again that's using your formulas. So what you can do is you can transpose with a formula also, and that basically works when you have similar kind of data. So this has 6 columns and basically 2 rows. So you can basically do this. So you can select this, and earlier we were doing a copy, but now what we would want to do is we would want to just look at the row numbers, which tells me it is C33, C34, and it starts with C and ends with your H column. So what we can do is we know that we have 6 columns and 2 rows. So transposing that would actually give me 2 columns and 6 rows. So what we can do is we can select 2 columns and 6 rows in our Excel sheet. I can then basically start typing in the message, or I can just go to the address bar, and here I can say transpose. Let's go for C33, H34. It basically selects my data, and now I can just do a Control, Shift and Enter, and now if you see, all the values have been populated. Now you can just place your cursor in one of the cells, but if you see the address bar, the formula remains the same. This is because this is an array formula. So we can read more about an array formula here. It's basically something which performs calculations on more than one cell in an array. And in the example here, the array is the original data, that is C33 to H34. So your transpose is just changing the horizontal orientation to the vertical orientation. So this is a very simple way in which you can basically use the Excel's capability to transpose your data and convert your rows into columns and columns into rows. Apart from working on additions, subtractions, filling up your data, sorting the data, or basically splitting your data, transposing your data, one of the other requirements is sorting and filtering your data. Now that can be very handy when you're working on huge data and you would want to sort it in a particular order, say ascending or descending, or might be based on a particular field, or if that field was, or if the cell was highlighted with a particular color, sorting the data. So let's look at how Excel can be used for sorting and filtering. Examples are pretty simple here. So let's check that. So if we go into sort and filter and say this is the data I have, say for example, I would want to sort the values in the department column alphabetically. So what I can do is I can select department column, and I'm already in the home tab. I can straight away go here which says sort and filter. I can then say sort A to Z, and that's basically alphabetically sorting your department column. And once I do this, you would see the data has been sorted, but it's not just this data. We can just do a Control Z and check what are the values we have. So here we have meat, which is beef, and 90,000, 110,000, the values. Then you have bakery, which should ideally be the first row if we sort it in an alphabetical order, which goes with bakery as desserts. You have the values, so we can check this again. So select department and then just do a sort and filter, and let's say sort A to Z. And if you see, the data has changed, but it's not just changing your first column, but then it has taken care of all the data. However, the data has been sorted based on the department column. So you have bakery, which aligns with desserts, which has the values, and now we have all the data which has been filtered. Now what we can also do is we can sort December's amounts from largest to smallest. So what we can do is we can basically click any cell in the December column, let's say 20,000, and then what I can do is I can go into sort filter, and then I can say sort largest to smallest. So if you see bakery breads is the row which has the smallest data, or might be you have deli sandwiches, so that one looks also smaller. So let's do a larger to smallest. And if I do this, you would see the values have been shifted now. So it is no more based on the department column, because now the data is being sorted based on the values in the December column. And you see bakery, which was alphabetically the first one, has become second last. So either you can sort the data based on a department column, which goes based on the values. These are all string values or words. So it sorts alphabetically. If you have numbers, might be you can give some values and you can sort the data. You could anytime do a custom sort, and you could basically select if you would want to select the data. So I could do a custom sort, and then I could choose which is the column which we would want to use for sorting, what is the sorting needs to be done, is it cell values, is it cell color, font color, conditional formatting, and then you can also choose the order. So that's one more way to do that. Now, if you scroll down, that also shows how you can sort by date or a color. So for example, if you would want to sort based on the expense date, so there are different options. So what I can do is I can select this date field. I can just do a right click. I can go into sort, and then I can choose, I would want to sort oldest to newest. So since I selected the date field, it basically has sorted all the data, and it has taken the expense date into consideration. Now there are these filters which you see on the row headings. We could have also used those. So I could have selected this, and that basically says or mentions which are the dates I would be interested in looking at. I also have sort by color here. I can do a sort oldest to newest or newest to oldest. So I could also use these filters which have been applied here. Now we have the data which is in color. So if I would want to basically select the color columns or color cells, I could select this. I can basically do a right click here, and when I go into sort, I could choose put selected color or cell color on the top, and that basically will make sure that my data is sorted, and it has also sorted that in a descending order. So in this way, you can sort or basically filter your data. What we can also do is we can add filters. So sometimes we can go for formulas which we would want to use. What we can also do is we can basically select the filter which has been applied here. Now, how does the filter come in there? So if I would select a particular row, I could select a particular row, and then I could decide if I would want to just add a filter to this one. And that's how the filter has come in. So we have the filter. What we can do is we can basically click on this drop down, and then you have something like number filters. So we can always go here. We can basically choose one of these. So we can basically choose above average. So I could select this, and then basically it shows me the values. We could also delete the filter by clicking on this one, and we could say, well, I'm not interested in this filter anymore. So I could clear the filter, and that shows me all the values. Or I could say that let's click on some other field, for example, food. I can go in here, I can go into number filters, and then I could say, well, I'm interested in values which are below average, above average, might be greater than, and then I can choose what is the value. So for example, if we say I'm interested in food which is greater than $25, I could give a value here, I could say okay, and now I have applied the filter. Similarly, you can select this, and then you can just clear your filter and your data is back. So remember, no data is lost. It is just hidden, or basically based on the filter not shown. So that's good enough for us. And in this way, you can sort and filter the data. So for more details, obviously in all these sheets, you have the links which point to more information on the web, and you can always refer to these. So this is simple way in which you can sort and filter any amount of data which has been stored within your Excel within a particular sheet. Now that we have learned about add, fill, split, transpose, sorting, and filtering, it will also be good to learn how to work with tables, or basically converting your data into a tabular format and then doing some easy computations. So click on this tables option here. Now here we see there is some data which is in 5 columns and n number of rows. So I can basically select this data, and then what I can do is I can insert, choose the table option, and then it says my table has headers, and we'll be okay with that. I'll say okay, and now if you see, this is the table created. It basically has different filters which we have learned earlier how to use, and this is basically my table, which is a collection of cells which has some special features. So we can easily add rows to this table, we can add columns to this table, and we can even do some calculations. So for example, here I can click on this one, I can basically enter some field, and then I can hit on enter, and we see that this row has been inserted, wherein we can easily fill in values. For example, I would say chocolates. I could give some value here, size 25,000, might be 35,000, and then basically I can give in some values here. Now what you can also do is you can continue adding rows in this way, and say for example you would want more columns, so you can select this option here in the top bottom right corner. You can just drag it towards the right, and that basically has automatically created columns for my next month wherein I can feed in the data. So this is a simpler way wherein you can keep adding more rows and columns to your data if that has been converted in a tabular format. Now let me just do a Control Z, that basically deletes the columns. Again Control Z deletes the last row which we added, and I can stop here, or I can even remove my values by doing multiple Control Z and removing my rows. So this is how I converted my data into a table, and then I can easily work on this. What I can also do is I can do some calculations. So what we can do, we have a table here, we have a total field, and what we can do is we can just select one cell here. Now as we have learned earlier, we can do a Alt and then equals, and that basically says what is this doing. So it says it is calculating the sum of the last 3 months, and if that's what you would want to do, just hit on enter, and it has automatically calculated the totals for all your rows for these 3 columns. So the sum formula is getting filled up. Now I can select any particular cell and I can look in my address bar. So it has already given me the formula where it has started calculating the sum from the October column till the December column, and has given me the calculated values of the columns. What we can also do is we can get total rows in the table. Now that's a simpler option. So what we can do is we can select any cell in this particular table, and then we see that there is a table tools design option showing up here. Now I can select this, and then it says, well, let's get a total row. So let's select this, and it automatically populates the total here. And if you would want the average, then we could select this, and from the drop down I can select what I'm interested in. So for example, I would want the average values and not the total. I could just select this, and that gives me the average of these values. So we can always do simpler computations here by converting our data into table format. Let's learn about one more efficient way of working with the data, and that's using your drop downs. So let's see how drop downs work here. Now, say for example, you have this data which has the values in the food column and department is empty. And say for example, you would want to enter the values in department. However, you would want to select the department should either have produce or meat and bakery. And these are the only three options which should be available for any user to fill in the values. How do we do that? So we can basically create a table by pressing Control D. So what I can do is under my department here, I can select one of the cells and then I can do a Control T that basically converts this into a table. I can say OK and my table is created. Now what I can do is once this part is done, we can select all the blank fields here where we would want this drop down to be applicable. Now, under your data tab, you can go in and select data validation. And this has an option called data validation. Click on this, which basically says allow any value. So here I will select I would want to give a list of values. And then I can type in my values here, which I can say produce, say for example meat, and then say bakery. Now these are the values, so we can click on OK. And once we have done that, we basically have a drop down here next to apples, which will only show us the values which we can feed in under the department column. So I can go into every cell and then I can basically choose what is the department which handles this. And then basically I can select one of these from the drop down. So this is an easier option of creating your drop down and then feeding in the values from the set of values which you have defined here on the right. So this is a simple example of using your drop downs, working with your tables, working with your sort and filter, transpose, split, filling up your data, adding in some data here. And similarly, you can use Excel for more than one use case using its inbuilt features to easily work with your data. Let's see how we can import data or bring in data into our Excel from your local machine or from an external web source. So what we can do is we can open up a blank Excel sheet and say, for example, you have been provided a text file or a CSV file and you would want to import that data into your Excel sheet. That can be easily done. So right now I've opened an Excel sheet. Now I can click on data and here I have an option which says existing connections from other data sources. So, or you can click on connections if you have already created some. So we can click on from other sources. So this is one option where you can connect to your different data sources and you can get the data from one of these. What we can also do is I can click on connections. Now it says there is none. I can click on add. It says, well, show the connections where connection files on network, connection files on this computer. So I can say, let's get some files from this computer. Now, if that does not show up something, so say browse for more, and that basically shows you different options. So let's basically select a folder where I have some data sets. I'll click in here. And this is basically a folder where I have some data sets. Now let me select this particular file and I know it is a CSV file. So let's click on open. Now if you would want to verify this, you could have gone and looked into the properties of the file and it says it is a .csv file, which is what we are interested in. So I'll take this file, I'll say open. Now this basically shows me the text import wizard option, which says, is the file delimited? I'll say yes. Click on next. So I will select comma as my delimiter. I can say text qualifier is none. Now this is my data. So my data preview is already showing me the data is what is the data in the CSV file. You can click on next, and then you have an option which says data format is general. You can go for date format, you can go for advanced options. So I'll just say finish, and basically now this has been created here. So we basically have this, and now I can click on close. Now once you have done that, you can click on existing connections. It shows me the data which we have here, the connection which we have created, say open, and then it says, do you want to import this data or bring this data into existing worksheet? You can also say add this to a data model if you're doing some data modeling, so click on OK. And now this data is automatically inserted in my Excel file. I can basically save it into this particular sheet. Now what we can also do is we can also start a new sheet, and that does not have a data, and we can get some other data from web. So what I can do is I can go into my GitHub, and let's say I would be interested in this CSV file. So I can select this, and this is my GitHub path, a path on web. So I can click on raw, and that basically gives me the raw path where this particular file is. Now you can select this, copy this particular path, and here you can come back to your Excel sheet. We would be interested in getting the data from web, might be from a text file where we will have to specify the delimiters, or let's go to web. And here I can give in the web path from where I would be interested in getting the file. Let's give the GitHub path, which is publicly available, and then click on import. Now once you click on import, it tells me there are two fields, data and value. These are within double quotes, separated by comma. So first let's click on import. Now once we do this, it will basically get the data from web and put in here. It says existing worksheet, so we had already created a new worksheet. So let's click on OK, and now you have the data coming in, but then this basically shows me in one particular field. So what we can also do is we can just do a Control A, that selects all my columns here, and that's my data. So we can then basically filter this out. So we can say text to columns. It's a delimited file. Click on next. We can select comma and let the text qualifier be quotes. It shows me data preview. Click on next. So you have the general format. It shows the destination. That's the column. Click on finish, and now your data has been split, and you have the data which you have imported from web. So this is the data which is coming in from web. This is the data which came in from my local machine. And similarly, we can even create connection with an existing database. So I can basically click on connections if I would want to do that. So I have an option called connection here, and it says where the selected connections are used. I can basically click on add. I can basically choose if I would want to get the files from network or from computer like we did earlier. I can click on browse for more, which should show me different other options to create connections. Say you would want to create a new SQL server connection. You can connect to a new data source coming in from different place. You could basically choose what kind of connection would you want. So these are all the different options which we can go for. And we can basically connect to a database. For example, if I have some database and say, for example, Access database, I can see if there are some files with that particular database and I can import it. So similarly, we can also click in here which says new query, and that also gives you an option of getting the data from your files, from all these folders, from databases. So you can basically click here and then you can import data from a MySQL database, provided that is set up on your local machine or on a particular server. You can go from cloud, you can get it from online services, you can get it from other sources which says from web. from your Hadoop file system, from Active Directory, from a blank query, and you can even combine queries wherein you can run a Power Query editor. You can get the data from different sources, and then you can bring it into your Excel. So in this way, you can get your data from different sources into your Excel, into your spreadsheet, and then you can continue working on those data sets. We have already learned some basic operations which you can do in Excel, and let's implement our knowledge by working on this particular data which is coming in from housing data set. Now here, if we see some fields, we have agent, date listed, area, list price, and this is basically the data which has been sorted in newest to oldest order of date listed. So how do we arrive at this? So what I can do is I can just click on data listed, and then I can either go in here, I can select sort, I can get into custom sort, and then I can choose the column based on which I would want to sort the data. So I would look for the newest data to the oldest data. That means that would be in a descending order of dates, or you could say the oldest date or the earliest month will be towards the lower side of your sheet. So here we can select date listed. Now I can say let it sort based on cell values and the order what we have here. So we have newest to oldest. So let's select this. I can say OK. And now if you see, the date has been sorted. So we have your 10/18/2007 on the top. So that seems to be the latest date. And as we go down, we will see an earlier month or an earlier month than that in this date listed. So we have sorted our data into newest to oldest order, and that's based on your date column. So the result shows up here. Now what we can also do is we can have different questions which we would want to answer. So for example, I would want to sort the data in ascending order of area and descending order of agent name. How do we do that? So let's look into this. So this is here. I already have the result here. And how did I get this? So I'm looking for ascending order of area and descending order of agent name. So we can start with any particular column, that does not matter. So for example, if I look into this Excel sheet, I have my agent name, select this, which we want in a descending order. So we could either do a sort and then go for descending sort Z to A. We could also use the filter option here on the top right, and we could do it, or I could just say sort Z to A, and then it has arranged the data based on the agent column being in descending order. Now I can go into area, and then I can again do a sort, and I wanted my area column to be used for sorting the data in ascending to descending. And that basically not only changes the order of this particular column, but for my complete data. So let's do that. And now if you see, we have the data which has been sorted. So we can see how many values we have here and the area values which we see. And this is how you get your result. So I'll just do a Control Z and again, and I'm back to my original data, and this is the sorted result which we are seeing at. Similarly, we can answer other questions. For example, sort the data according to the following order of area. That is, we are saying county, central, and then your county. So we can basically choose in which particular way we would want to do it. So it is county, central, and then again county. So if I look into my sheet 3, so here I basically have my data which is having some South County, then you have your central, and then you have your North County. So we would want to sort the data to solve our problem, which is according to the following order. So first we go for area, then we go for South County, Central, and North County. So what we can do is we can basically have area field selected, and I would want to sort this particular data. So I have South County, Central, and North County. So I can basically go for custom sort, and then I can choose which is the value or column which I'm interested in. Let's go for area. We will go for something like cell values. Well, you can also try to explore conditional formatting icon if this is what you would want to use, or we can basically go for just cell values. And here we can say if I would be interested in first getting my values for South County. So for example, I can say custom list, and then I can basically give in the new list here. So I can say S dot county, and then I would want central, and then I would want North County. So let's select this as it exists. We can basically say add, and that's basically the order which we want. Say OK, and then say OK here. And now what we would want is we would want our data, so we can compare that with the values which we see here. It starts with Kelly. You have in the 12th row something like Lang, and that's what we are doing. So we can basically arrange the data in a particular order by choosing a custom list and then sorting your data. So that's one more simpler task of what we have done, where we have sorted the data in the order where under our area column, we first wanted South County, then we wanted central data, and then we wanted North County. So this is how you can do it. Now, let's look into one more problem. So it says find all the houses in the central area, and we would want to basically apply a regular filter. Let's see how do we do that. So we can click on this, and here we have the data. So the problem statement is we would want to find all the houses in central area. Now how do we do that? We can do a sorting, but we would want to use the filter which you see here is implemented. So how do you do it? So you can select this area, and say for example I would want to apply filter. I can just go in here and I can say let's get a filter on my first row, and now I have filters applied. So we are interested in looking into the central area houses. Let's go in here. It says all these fields are selected. That means it shows everything wherein your area has all these values. Let's unselect this, and then I will only be interested in the central. So let's say OK, and then say OK. So now you see that the area filter has been applied, and we are looking at the central column. So what we have done is we have applied a simple filter, and we are looking at our data. At any point of time, if you do not want the filter, then what I can do is I can select this, and I can say, well, I'm interested in all the data. So I could do this, or you can clear the filters from area and you get your data back. So that's in one way you can filter out your data. So let's look at an example of sort and filter where we might have to filter the data based on two columns or multiple columns with different kind of values, where it could be and or condition. Now say for example, this is the data I have, and this is the question which we need to answer, such as find the list of all houses in the central region with pool and South County without pool. Now, if it was a simple filter based on one cell, I could have just selected my header row. I could have then applied the filter, and once I have the filter, I can look in area where I have three regions. So I'm only interested in Central and South County, so I can get rid of North County, and that's fine. But then we have two different conditions here. So we need the data in Central region to have the value for pool being true, and for South County, the value has to be without pool. Now, how do we do that. So what we can do is we can first create a copy of these headers here. So let me do that. Now the area has to be South County. So basically I can either just select this and I can choose this value, and then I can select this and then I can choose central. So that's the criteria which I have, and the pool value has to be, so central region should be with pool. So then this one basically has to be true, and this one has to be basically false. So South County is without pool. So let's select one of the values here, and this is my criteria. Now to get my result, we can always place your cursor here and you can check this is M column and 8th row. Okay, so we would want the result here. So let's go ahead and now click on data, and then in filter you have an option called advanced, and here what I can do is I can say I would want to filter the list in the place, but that's not what I would want to do. So I'll say copy to another location, and here if you see the list range will tell me that this is the data. So A1 to J126, so A to J column selected and all the rows. Criteria range is basically based on what I've given here. So that is M from 1 to V, which is 3. So I'm selecting these columns and then I'm saying all the way whatever criteria I've given, and copy to, I'm saying M8 to V8. So that basically will give me my filtered result. So you could basically just say okay, and now I have my data which has been filtered, and I have my area which is South County, that is without pool, central with pool, again South County without pool, and then if you look at your central value, that's pool. So this is an advanced filter which we have applied, where simply we have filtered the data based on 2 columns and then we have our result. So in this way you can have your customized filter applied on 2 different columns and get your data, which can be either replacing the existing content, or in the same sheet in different set of columns and rows you can have your result. Let's look at one more example of filtering where you are trying to filter the data based on an AND condition being met in 2 different columns, and then you would want to filter out the data for only specific columns. So the situation is the agents with a house in North County, that should be county, area having 2 and a single type family. So we are talking about 2 bedrooms, and we would basically have a single type family, and here the criteria is that we would want to only populate these columns, which is agent, area, bedroom and type. Now what you can do is, as I explained earlier, that you can get your result in the same sheet in a different location. So here I have created these headers which says agent, area, bedrooms and type. Now this is basically a copy of all the columns what we have here: agent, data listed, area, list price, bedrooms, bath, square feet and so on. So you can basically create a copy of the headers here, and this is where we will give our advanced criteria to filter the data. So the conditions which need to be met is we need to look at North County. So for example, here in area, I can basically go ahead and select one of the values, North County. Now the criteria is having 2 bedrooms only. So let's say bedrooms, and let's say the value should be 2. And then basically I'm saying a single type family. So when you would want the single type family, so here under type, I can give the criteria single type. So this is my AND condition. So we are saying North County area having 2 bedrooms and the type is single family. Now this is the criteria, which basically means if I select this one tells me that this is M one row onwards till V2. So this is what we have, and we would want to filter based on this. So let's go ahead and then go for data, filter, advanced. And here in advanced,